Now, an update on a story we told you about yesterday. Voters in Washington state rejected a ballot measure that would have required the mandatory labeling of genetically modified foods. Early polling had showed wide support for that initiative, but a flood of advertising on TV and radio, financed by the food industry and the biotech companies, may have helped persuade people to vote that measure down.
Well, another hot-button issue on ballots in several states on Election Day involved raising the minimum wage above the current federal standard of $7.25 an hour. Now, depending on your point of view, that may be or may not be good for workers. Hampton Pearson has more.
Voters in a small city in Washington state have just approved a $15 an hour minimum wage. 6,300 workers in and around the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport are due for a big pay raise. The first step in a push by organized labor to go national.
People finally will be able to make ends meet without having to work 2 or 3 jobs with a decent pay, decent benefits. So it's a great victory for not just for the workers at the airport, but for this community here.
In New Jersey, the only thing more popular with voters in the re-election of Chris Christie was a 61% vote approving a constitutional amendment to raise the state's minimum wage to $8.25 an hour starting in January. California is the first state to commit to a $10 an hour minimum wage by 2016 under a bill signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown in September. Economists say what all 3 states have in common is a large number of low-wage workers and a high cost of living.
Folks at the bottom of the pay scale have been left behind. So you have to do something to try to reconnect their labor, their work, they're trying to get ahead to economic growth, because it's not happening the way it used to.
19 states and the District of Columbia now have a minimum wage that is higher than the $7.25 an hour federal law. Business groups are fighting back. From the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, quote, any discussion about raising the minimum wage needs to recognize that small employers often have to operate under very slim profit margins and will have the hardest time absorbing these higher labor costs.
Good intentions can't repeal the laws of economics. When you raise the cost of anything, be it fuel and energy or be it inexperienced labor, businesses and consumers buy less of it. Raising the minimum wage is going to mean that there's going to be fewer jobs for inexperienced and unskilled workers to take.
By the time the 2014 elections roll around, there could be minimum wage proposals on the ballots of at least 8 more states. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Hampton Pearson in Washington.